Prime Minister Modi, in his exclusive to print media PTI, has laid forth his vision for the country, saying that India is all set to become a developed nation by 2047, going on to add that the G20 would play a good role when it comes to steering the growth of the global South growth. Not just this, the Prime Minister has even dismissed objections of Pakistan and China on G20 meets in Kashmir and Arunachal, saying that it's natural to hold meets in every part of the country. The Prime Minister has went on to say, even cited country's record of jumping 5 spots in less than 10 decades, going on to add that India is very well on course to become the top 3 economies of the world in near future. Let's go across to Abhishek Kapoor also joining us. Abhishek, take us through the highlights of Prime Minister's exclusive. He's surely laid the foundation, the vision that he has for the country for the next few years, in fact, many years to come.
Well, yes, obviously, and this was expected. So the Prime Minister, with all that has been done in G20 or on G20 front, with Prime Minister's personal touch, many things that have been done are close to his heart. For example, involving the people, turning it into a people's presidency and not keeping it a Latvian zone event. And the manner in which over 200 meetings have traveled to almost 60-70 cities, all the states of the country and union territories, including Jammu and Kashmir and Arunachal Pradesh. I think that gives you an idea of the kind of thought that has gone into it. Prime Minister has also, of course, taken the opportunity to speak on the ongoing Europe war and said the dialogue and diplomacy are the only way out. He's talking about general conflict, and so it brings in the element of Pakistan and China having objected to the Kashmir and Arunachal events respectively, about which I was mentioning, Samiksha. And then he has, set the stage really for G20 event as not just the country but the world looks to India, and the arc-lights of global diplomacy focus on New Delhi. So when he's saying that there was a time when India would be looked upon or looked down upon as a nation of 1 billion empty stomachs, and today it is seen as a nation of 1 billion aspirations and 2 billion skilled hands. And that's a kind of transition that has taken place. And Prime Minister has also said that India will be in top 3 economies of the world in near future. And that's, of course, almost given. Then he says that Indians today have a great chance to lay foundation for growth that will be remembered for next 1,000 years, even as we look to become a developed economy by 2047. So I think Prime Minister there using the opportunity of this interview to the agency, I think more or less he's focusing on G20, unless, there are more flashes that have to come out of the interview. But it seems as of now it is just limited to Prime Minister's vision for G20, how he has wanted and succeeded in involving people, and how when the arc-lights of the world are going to be on New Delhi, what to expect from the G20 Leaders Summit, what has been India's contribution, how India has shaped the global agenda through its G20 presidency, and how the world has accepted it. I remember from the ramparts of the Red Fort, Prime Minister in his Independence Day address they coined the phrase which was that India is the Vishwa Mitra, which is essentially friend of the world. And there is a reason and the context that he provided, that post-pandemic, the manner in which India helped with the medicines first, acting as the global pharmacy, then with the vaccines, with the Vaccine Matri program, and the manner in which India has shared its proficiency and expertise in the digital public infrastructure like CoWIN app, like the Aadhaar card, like the UPI, and almost 20 nations around the world are in various stages of implementing these digital public goods and learning from India. So I think in that sense, Prime Minister really underscoring the importance of G20 event and the scale of the event, and I think communicating to the nation at large why every citizen should, with an element of pride, a sense of pride, should look forward to the event that is the G20 Leaders Summit.
Yes. Abhishek, stay with us. Talking in detail about Prime Minister's interview to PTI, he's also spoken at length about his resolve to act on corruption, casteism and communalism. Once again, put this into context how the government really has walked the talk when it comes to taking firm stand and cracking down on corruption, casteism and communalism from the country.
Well, so obviously, as I said, Samiksha, when we were discussing earlier, there is a topicality to Prime Minister's interview, and which is the upcoming G20 summit. But then when he gives an interview, he typically does not deflect questions. He takes all questions that are asked of him. And so if there is a political question that is asked of him, obviously he would respond to it. And that's what he seems to have done. So from G20 and global cooperation, cyber crimes, terrorism, to whatever element of divisiveness that is there in society, he has to obviously respond.
Stay with us, and just to read out excerpts from Prime Minister's interview to PTI. The Prime Minister says that India will be a developed nation by 2047. Corruption, casteism and communalism will have no place in our national life. He further goes on to talk about the G20 summit, which would be taking place under India's presidency. The Prime Minister says that her words and vision are seen by world as roadmap for future and not merely ideas. So Prime Minister having spoken at length when it comes to putting forth his vision for the country for years and years to come. He says that India is all set to become and is on path of becoming a developed nation by 2047. The Prime Minister has even spoken on the G20 at length. He says that many positive impacts from India's G20 presidency, and that some of the impacts are very close to his heart, adding that the GDP-centric view of world is now changing to human-centric one, and that India is playing a role of catalyst. With that, we head into a short break. On the other side, we'll get you details of excerpts from Prime Minister's interview to print media, where he's put forth his vision for the country.